Hi friends, I'm Gio, and Bentley's right here helping me with the recording. So if you hear anything, that's Bentley helping out. Let's get started. Chapter 1. Home, the final frontier, to boldly return to the place that cast me out 15 years ago. Mercy, Alabama, the unofficial Christmas tree capital of the Bible Belt, about 110 miles southeast of Montgomery, tucked along Highway 231, past Dothan, but still this side of the Florida line. To be summoned back to a reunion I never expected, and certainly never wanted. I'm Marcus Carter, the wayward son. The lawyer, Mr. Richard Abogado, requested me personally for the reading of my granduncle's will. That's my grandfather's brother, for those of you who don't know what a granduncle is. I had driven nearly 1,600 miles from a city as opposite Mercy as you can get, Las Vegas, Nevada. I had taken the I-10 corridor through Arizona, New Mexico, all of Texas, Louisiana, crossed the Mississippi at Baton Rouge, then drove through Mississippi and finally to Cottondale, Florida. Then a sweaty trip north along Highway 231, and welcome to the place I swore I'd never return to. I made the 3-day trip in a Subaru Forester I bought used 2 years ago at Young Car Emporium. Note, I'd paid for it in cash that I'd earned myself. I'm not wealthy, but as a software developer, I do make 6 figures. The car is gray inside and out, neutral, forgettable. It doesn't make a splash or a statement. Everyone ignores it and stares at the Lamborghinis and Porsches instead. I drove into Mercy, Alabama. 7,800 people, 2 Baptist churches, 1 Catholic one, 1 Mormon one, 3 diners, a handful of real restaurants, and a whole lot of trees. Mostly pine, sand pine, loblolly pine, longleaf pine, and slash pine, but most importantly, the red cedar, the traditional Christmas tree of Florida, and every sun-drenched town the snowbirds flee to when winter comes knocking. I turned onto the old Main Street. This part of town is angled different than the rest. It lines up with the railroad tracks for 4 square blocks. After that, the roads become a tangle of spaghetti. I didn't want to go home. Didn't want to endure the folks. Not yet. The town had changed. Subway on the corner, a McDonald's opposite, a shoe store where the old bowling alley used to be. The ancient theater still stood, as did the giant statue of a Christmas tree in the middle of town, commemorating that Mercy, Alabama once held the record for the most lights on a real Christmas tree. They lost the record back in 2010 when a Belgian group claimed the prize. Just off of downtown is the Greasy Spoon Diner. It's been there forever. Seriously, it's called that. On its walls are spoons from all over the world. Big ones, tiny ones, weird ones. Even a spoon used in The Matrix. That one's in a special case. I spent my high school years sitting in those booths, dreaming of making it big playing baseball. Never did. But telling Connor Tidwell I crushed on him, that I did do. 3rd booth from the back. He's a football star, handsome. Daddy was mayor, still is, and they had money. I asked him if we could go on a date. Nothing fancy, burgers and a movie. Turned into one of life's greatest mistakes. It didn't turn out so well. For me. Marcus, I said to myself, stop throwing a pity party. You got over this years ago. Everybody went to the Greasy Spoon. Still do. I parked, pulled my shoulders back, and walked inside. It hadn't changed. Spoons hung from every wall, window, door, everything. Chapter 2. I took a seat at the bar, pulled a laminated menu off the stand, and read through it. "What'll you have, hon?" She was middle-aged, speckled gray hair pulled into a tight bun, eyes sharp enough to cut through a lie. "Chicken fried steak and eggs with a side of cheesy grits." Sounds like a man gearing up for a big day of work, or about to do battle. "Something like that," I said. "I'm here for the reading of my granduncle, Theodore Carter's will." She wiped down the counter with a practiced swipe. "I knew I recognized you. You're Chief of Police Bolton Carter's boy." "Guilty, ma'am. I'm Marcus, the younger son." She handed my order ticket back to the cook. "Don't blame you for leaving, but times aren't what they used to be." "What do you mean?" She paused, meeting my eyes directly. "Story is, Mayor Tidwell ran you out of town because you were sweet on his son Connor. Riled up half the county. Well, what you don't know is that Connor Tidwell proved he was a man's man. Got 2 women pregnant. His daddy forced him to choose one to marry and pay child support to the other, or he wouldn't get a single penny of the old man's money." "They happily married?" I asked. "Only when cows fart perfume." "Orders up," a skinny guy with glasses yelled from the back. He leaned out the window, squinting. Chapter 3. "That you, Marcus? Ain't seen you since the Green Bay Packers won that Super Bowl." "The one where they handed the Pittsburgh Steelers their butts in a sling?" I quipped back. He laughed. "That's the one. Whole town was in here watching it. You were sitting right there in that corner booth, eating fries like they were gonna disappear." "Still do," I said. The cook with glasses walked out of the kitchen and slid my plates in front of me. Golden steak, runny eggs, grits thick enough to stand a spoon in. The smell hit me like a memory I wasn't ready for. This was home. "Welcome back to Mercy, Marcus," he said softly. "A nice-looking guy, and familiar, too. Town still nosy, still loud, still stuck in its ways, but it ain't all bad." Memories shifted. A young guy, geeky, glasses, braces. I'd known him back at Israel Pickens Memorial High School 15 years ago. "Grady?" I asked. And then said the dumbest thing I've ever said. "You changed." "Yep," the waitress said, her eyes twinkling with matchmaking glee. "If I was 20 years younger, and a man, I'd snooze right up to him." It took me a second to understand what she meant. "Grady? You came out?" "Like you, but years later," he said, looking at his shoes before looking at me. "Climate's changed a little." I almost smiled. Not the humor kind, but the bitter. "They didn't run you out of town?" "No," Grady said quietly. "My daddy stood up for me. Even negotiated with Grandpa's double barrel in hand, told Mayor Tidwell to get with the rainbow or nobody would vote for him anymore. Daddy's got a temper." That stung. Bad. My dad had never stood up for me. Neither had Mom. They'd sided with the Tidwells on everything. Mom's parting words: "Best for everybody if you just solve your own issues and don't come back to make trouble for the rest of us." She didn't say them out of love, but with a bit of, "You've brought these problems on yourself. Now deal with it by yourself." It didn't help that my dad was chief of police and appointed by Mayor Tidwell, that the city paid his salary, but expected him to be the mayor's lapdog. What Mayor Tidwell proclaimed was scripture, to be quoted, not questioned. And I had committed the most grievous of sins. I had fallen in love with his son. Punishment? Banished from the kingdom. And my parents had allowed it. Chapter 4. The food was hot, the coffee was strong, and for the first time since crossing the state line, I didn't feel like running. "Were you and your granduncle close?" Grady asked. "Not really," I said. "Uncle Theodore never got the hang of computers and modern phones. We wrote occasionally, but I think penmanship is becoming a lost art." "Stop by when you're done with the will reading," Grady said. "I make a mean biscuits and gravy. My fried okra is not bad either." I had a feeling he was asking me out without really asking me out. This trip was looking up. The waitress smiled a bit too wide. "Grady's just shy. He's the best cook this side of New Orleans, and he's got a head for money." "Clarice," Grady warned, but that didn't stop the middle-aged matchmaker. "Just saying, Marcus could do a whole lot worse than a good-looking guy who can bake biscuits so fluffy they're considered divine. And can Grady balance a budget? Last month he stretched what we have to feed an army. Boy's got a head for practical finances, not like those Tidwells wasting their money on foie gras and them fancy charcuterie boards." "Clarice," Grady said again, his tone a little darker, but he was smiling too. The waitress's eyes gleamed. "Marcus, you come on back and share a slice of homemade peach pie, fresh made this morning. I'm sure Grady will be ready for a break." Abedago and Son, the local law firm, had a conference room and back. Fake paneling, swamp cooler that smelled of oysters, and a beige carpet that crisped like new. Mr. Abedago was an old friend of my father's, which meant he wasn't one of mine. I stepped inside the office on the dot of 7. The secretary ushered me to the conference room. A candle smelled like grapefruit burned in the center of the table. Funny, the wayward son was the first to arrive. My aunt and uncle arrived next. My aunt and my dad were brother and sister, she being 2 years older, and 2 years nicer. She always liked me, even when she found out I was gay. She and my uncle were the only people who stood against Dad and Mayor Tidwell all those years ago. My aunt smiled. "Marcus, my lands, it's good to see you. I'd have sent a Christmas card, but I didn't have an address." "My job has me moving around a lot," I replied. My uncle crossed the room to me and shook my hand. "Between you and me, we should have left when you did. We didn't because our families live here and we couldn't bear to be separated." "I make the better potato salad out of all of them," my aunt said. "Even your mom. She makes it mushy." My uncle took a seat next to mine. "Heard you've been doing well. You're into storage units? Think you could help us store our old furniture?" I allowed a smile. "Not exactly. I'm a tech for Thwaite Information Retrieval and Storage Systems. We store data, not couches." Next to enter were my cousins, children of my aunt and uncle, 3 with spouses. We were polite, but we barely remembered each other. My siblings arrived next. 2 brothers, 1 sister, all older. One of my brothers had a spouse. The others came alone. We nodded, said hi. Them, I resented. They could have said something, but instead just watched Dad drive me out of town and then told me never to come back. A woman arrived that I did not know, Lindsay Winters. She was polite and said she worked for a law firm in New York representing the interests of the Alabama Historical Society. Theodore Carter's house and grounds are considered historic landmarks. "Why is that?" my uncle asked. "A century ago, Evelyn Hartford lived there and wrote 3 novels while raising a family." At everyone's blank faces, Lindsay continued, "You've all heard of Margaret Mitchell, famous for Gone with the Wind in the mid-1930s? Evelyn Hartford wrote The Bells Over the Harbor 20 years before that, while World War I was being fought in Europe. She even lost a brother to the war, which she included in the book. It's not autobiographical by any sense of the word, but she did include several events that can be traced to her life. Unfortunately, like many forgotten works, they never made a movie of it. Uncle had a copy on his shelves. Dusty. Made me read it. Said it was our heritage. Said the author was his great-great-grandmother or something. Its prose was too flowery for my tastes, but I read it. Good times. 2 years after that, I was kicked out of Mercy. This is who we come from, Uncle Theodore had said after my first driving lesson in the old car. He showed me an old black and white picture of her, a tired-looking woman sitting on a stool, her husband behind her and her children in front. All had serious, grim expressions, which made her my great-great-great-great-grandmother, I think. At our stupid expressions, Lindsay sat a little taller, her lips pursed for a heartbeat before she spoke, as if she were a tour guide. The Gothic Southern saga was considered the masterpiece of early 20th century literature. News to us, one of my cousins whispered. My parents arrived last. Mom in business casual, Dad in his uniform. They were friendly with the family. Barely nodded to me. I resented my brothers and sister, but my parents? The feelings went deeper, darker. Their betrayal had calcified into grief, slow, heavy, and enough to leave a bitter aftertaste whenever I thought of them. They were civil with Mr. Abogado, an aging man with gray hair and wearing a grayer business suit. He carried a thick folder in one hand, a tablet in the other. He counted heads, smiling when he saw me. Good, we're all here. Chapter 5. You really couldn't read his will until Marcus was here? Dad said. Some of us have responsibilities. It's customary to have all surviving parties present, Mr. Abogado replied, opening the folder. As some had a long way to travel, we made accommodations. He began reading the will of Theodore Ambrosius Carter, my granduncle. To each of the cousins and my siblings, Theodore Carter left them $10,000 apiece. My name wasn't read. To Mr. Carter and Mrs. Langford and their spouses, the sum of $20,000 each. Mom's brows lowered. Dad grimaced. Still no mention of me. I bequeath my home and all its possessions to the Historic Society of Alabama. I'd rather it go to a museum rather than have my relatives fight over antique doorknobs. What? Mom screeched. We'll fight this. That house belongs to family. Still no mention of me. Mr. Abogado continued, unfazed. The one exception to the above are the contents of my garage. Its possessions are hereby bequeathed to Marcus Carter and include a fully restored 1964 and a half Ford Mustang and several boxes of memorabilia he might find of interest. I couldn't help it. I laughed. One of my best memories was Uncle Theodore teaching me how to clutch in that old car. We'd raced along the back roads, drinking Coca-Cola and singing badly to whatever came on the radio. The car was so old it didn't even have a CD player. Mom snapped her purse off the floor and stood, her mouth severe. He gave everything to outsiders, even his car. We are contesting this will. He's obviously senile. Mr. Abogado glanced at the document. Not because he needed to, but because he was giving her time to cool down. 3 witnesses, myself and Dr. Edison included, confirm he was of sound mind and body, Mr. Abogado said. But he left us nothing, Mom said, her tone darkening with every word. We deserve it. No one was left out, Mrs. Carter, Mr. Abogado replied. He had no wife and no children. Assets were divided according to his wishes. You may contest, but everything is in order. After the reading, Mr. Abogado handed me the keys to the car in the garage. In an envelope, he gave me the title. It still had Theodore Carter's name on it. You'll need to contact the DMV to have it transferred to your name. I signed a few papers and was free to go. He turned to the woman from the museum next. For the first time in 15 years, Dad approached me. Son? Dad, I kept my tone neutral. Mayor Tidwell has expressed an interest in the Ford Mustang. Since you don't live here, it would be a show of goodwill if you gave it to him. He's willing to compensate you $1,000 for the trouble. That's a very generous offer. Chapter 6. By 8:30 that night, I sat at the Greasy Spoon, sharing fresh peach pie and vanilla ice cream with Grady. You mean the will had barely been read and your dad asked you for the car? Grady asked. I nodded. Can you believe it? What did you say? I told him that I'd drive it back to Vegas. He didn't like that? Nope, I said. It's not too late. We could go look at it right now. I have the keys. 20 minutes later, Grady and I were standing on a plot of land far outside of town. A small brass plaque at the front of the property read, Home of Evelyn Hartford, author. Polished to gleam, even at night. Uncle Theodore had kept the place in pristine condition, a 2-story masterpiece of Gothic design. The garage sat off to the side. We walked over, unlocked the door, and stepped in. 5 boxes were lined up along the wall, and a car waited under a cloth tarp. The air smelled slightly sweet. Someone had waxed the Mustang recently. Maybe it was one of the last things Uncle Theodore ever did. I hadn't expected the smell of wax, the tires, the oil, to make me remember the summers we polished the car together, under the hot Alabama sun. I fought back the melancholy. I hadn't missed my uncle before, not really, but the scent brought him back. Carnauba wax. He wouldn't let anything else touch the classic. What is it? Grady asked. When I was 17, I came over and found Uncle polishing the car. He had this special way of wiping, and he showed me. I can still remember how warm the metal was, how it smelled. We drank mint lemonade on the porch afterward, and he told me all about the car. Do you miss him? I nodded. He loved this old car. To him, it was family. How did he take it when he found out you were gay? Grady asked, his tone delicate. I'll never forget what he said, I replied, staring at the walls but seeing the memory. And that's supposed to make me love you less? Grady spoke, almost shyly. I think, out of all the relatives, you were his family. He grabbed one corner of the tarp. I took the other, and we slid it off. Wow, Grady said. Chapter 7. It shone in the dim light, a work of strength and beauty, white with twin blue racing stripes. The car was polished and waxed to perfection. The light reflected off it as if it were in a showroom rather than a garage. My uncle's Ford Mustang 1964 and a half. It became the car of a generation, maybe even the most iconic car of the last half of the 20th century. For decades, everything else got compared to it. 1964 and a half? Sounds Harry Potter, Grady said. The first ones were made in 1964, but they were officially marketed in 1965, I said. This baby redefined driving. I ran my fingers along its white smoothness. Uncle told me that this was a special variety. Under the hood sleeps a 289 V8 engine. That's 8 cylinders. Modern cars max out at 6. Uncle said it had 306 horsepower, while a regular Mustang had 210. It can get to 60 miles per hour in 7.5 seconds with a top speed of 128. So what made this different from other cars, like the Corvette or the Ferrari? Those were priced so only the wealthy could afford them, I said, opening the driver's side door. The Mustang was the first of a new breed. Sports cars the regular Joe could afford. They called them pony cars. Grady walked around the car. It doesn't have back seats. My uncle said it was a racing variety, something called a fastback. I don't know the details. Grady knelt in front of the hood. Don't Mustangs have a horse emblem on the front, and aren't they red? Usually. This one has a cobra emblem, and it's white with stripes. What are you saying? I don't think this is a Mustang, or just a Mustang. Grady looked at his phone, typed in a couple of phrases. We need to find the VIN number. Uncle said it was a special edition. I typed a query into my phone. It responded, Open the hood and look for the plate above the driver's side wheel well. Grady opened the hood, put his phone on flashlight mode. Found it. Starts with an SFM. According to my phone, it's a Shelby Ford Mustang, 1965, and it differs because it had a fastback body. So it is a special edition Mustang. I squinted at the tiny print, tapped the screen to enlarge, and reread it. According to this, only 562 Shelby Mustangs were built in 1965, all on fastback bodies. Collectors think maybe 400 survive today, most locked away in private collections. That makes this one rare and valuable. Grady allowed himself a grim chuckle. Point of order, Your Honor. Your dad isn't after a family heirloom. He wants a 6-figure Shelby for the Blue Book price of a used Corolla. I didn't say anything, but my stomach soured. Chapter 8. There were 5 boxes along the wall. After we draped the tarp back over the car, we opened the first box. Inside were notebooks filled with meticulous records about the Shelby Mustang. 60 years of maintenance logs, part numbers, and notes about where Uncle had tracked down hard-to-find replacement parts. The second box held page after page of genealogical histories, every branch of the family mapped out in his careful handwriting. The third box contained my uncle's journals. He wrote diligently every single day, and nothing was forgotten. Tucked between the pages were all the letters I had ever sent him. At the time, I didn't think they meant anything. Turns out, he lived for them. The fourth box held an old jewelry case, its contents as well preserved as the Mustang. It held an antique set of pearls, and nestled in a velvet pocket were 2 simple gold bands. The fifth box broke my heart. Photographs of my uncle with another man. He had lived in a time when it wasn't safe to be gay, when loving another man wasn't just taboo, but dangerous. People were harmed for less. My uncle and his partner had never come out. They had never married, never declared their love to the world, never let their light shine. A quiet romance hidden deep in the countryside. They lived together until his partner died 20 years ago. Uncle had lived alone ever since. There weren't legal protections back then, Grady said softly. A person could be fired, disowned, beaten, or even killed just for coming out. I don't think anybody ever knew my uncle was gay, I said. I remember he once had a roommate, but nobody knew it was more than that. Those must have been their secret wedding bands, Grady said, his tone growing somber. Married in all but paperwork, I replied. Before I closed the box, I held up a framed picture of young Theodore and his partner standing next to the Shelby Mustang, holding hands, wedding rings on, the greasy spoon in the background. With a very gentle touch, I tucked that picture away so it wouldn't get broken. Chapter 9. I woke the next morning with a neck that wouldn't straighten. Grady's sofa was lumpy. Something had poked me in the back all night, and there was only enough room for either my head or my feet, not both. I yawned. Sleeping on Grady's couch was still better than motel rates. Since I'd tossed the entire night, I had plenty of time to think. A 60-year-old car might not survive a cross-country trip. A friend of mine knew about old cars, or at least knew enough to tell me who else to contact. I texted him photos and the details. Grady came out to the bedroom, hair damp, towel wrapped around his waist. I put a couple of spare towels by the sink. Grab a shower. I'll make coffee and waffles. I don't use syrup, so I don't have any. My phone buzzed. In good condition, 150,000. Collectors might offer more. Send me a photo of the VIN and one of the engine. Next time, text when it's daylight, mother effing loser. Oops. Vegas time. It would be 5:45. I quickly sent, sorry. I had a picture of the engine, but not the VIN. I sent what I had. Grady had his back to me as he pulled a box of Kodiak flapjack and waffle mix from the cupboard. Nice back. Nice definition in the shoulder blades. Lean waist. The guy didn't work out, but he kept in shape, streamlined and rugged, and he definitely wasn't wearing anything under the towel. The little knot in my stomach woke up, the one that tries to act cool when you see a half-naked man, but also drools at the same time. Grady glanced over his shoulder, his smile quizzical. What? Anything I can do? I asked, swallowing, to help. Did my voice just crack? Grady snorted. Eggs are in the fridge. We'll need 2 for the batter and 6 for both of us. I'll make you my morning special. Waffles and eggs are pretty standard, I said. My variation on avocado toast, he replied. Waffles, avocado spread on top, sunny side up eggs, and Cholula hot sauce. I took a deep breath, reached into the fridge and found the eggs. The coolness felt like a balm on my skin. How long had it been since I'd had a boyfriend? The doorbell rang. My phone read 7:48. I'll get it. You handle the eggs, Grady said, handing me a non-stick pan. It was easy to see the door. Grady opened it. Clarice stepped in. She saw Grady. She saw me. She raised an eyebrow. Your dad's looking for you, she said, taking a seat at the small table. Chapter 10. How did you know I'd be here? I asked. Grady placed a cup of coffee in front of her, then set one on the table for me. Clarice gave me a stare like I'd just asked why the sky was blue. 2 + 2 = 6, obviously, she said. Your dad's been searching the whole town for you. Why? The will's read, papers signed. What's left? Grady asked. She didn't answer him. Instead, she flicked her eyes down at the towel around his waist and clicked her tongue. Go put some pants on. You think Marcus can concentrate with you looking like that? Grady let out a soft snort, the kind that said he knew exactly what he was doing. Had he done this on purpose? His eyes met mine, steady and unhurried, almost daring me to deny it. I couldn't. Heat curled low in my stomach, not sharp or overwhelming, just a warm, undeniable awareness of him. I wrapped my hands around the coffee cup, grounding myself in the warmth. Clarice raised an eyebrow at me, the kind that said she saw far more than I wanted her to. Grady finally turned toward the hallway, towel swaying just enough to make my breath catch. "Fine," he said over his shoulder, "but only because I don't want you spilling coffee on yourself." He disappeared into the bedroom. Clarice leaned in. "Lord have mercy, child. You're about as subtle as a marching band." "I'm not." But she waved me off. "You don't have to explain anything to me. Just don't let your daddy catch you off guard. He's riled up." That snapped me back to reality. The car, the boxes, the truth I'd uncovered, and the storm that was coming. Still, Grady's look lingered in my mind, warm as the coffee between my palms. Maybe staying another day wasn't the worst idea. And maybe, just maybe, I needed that shower. Chapter 11. I had just stepped out of the shower when the pounding started. Not a knock. A fist, heavy, impatient, the kind of sound that made the air in the apartment tighten. Grady looked up from the stove, spatula frozen mid-air. "That's not Clarice," he said quietly. "She said she had chores to do and would meet us at the Greasy Spoon later." My stomach dropped. I wrapped the towel tighter around my waist and moved toward the living room, water still dripping from my hair. Before I reached the door, a voice cut through it, sharp, familiar, and already angry. "Marcus, open this door right now." My father. Behind him, another voice, smoother, practiced. The mayor. I stopped breathing. Grady stepped beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat from his skin. He didn't touch me, but the nearness was enough to make my pulse stutter. The wrong moment for that flutter in my chest, the one that had been growing since yesterday, but I couldn't stop it. "Don't answer," Grady murmured. The pounding grew louder. "Marcus, we know you're in there," the mayor said. "This is a family matter. Let's not make it worse." Worse, as if I'd done something wrong. As if discovering the truth about my uncle, about his life, his legacy, his love, was some kind of crime. My throat tightened. Grady's hand hovered near my shoulder, not touching, but close enough that I could feel the intention, support, protection, something more dangerous than either. I stepped back from the door, heart hammering. "Marcus," my father barked, "you're going to hand over those keys, you hear me? That car belongs to the family, not you, not some outsider." He meant Grady. He meant my uncle's partner. He meant anyone who didn't fit his narrow world. He meant me. "Let's be reasonable. You don't want this to get ugly." Ugly. It was already ugly. The truth was heavy in my chest. I couldn't give them the car. I couldn't betray my uncle. I couldn't walk away from the boxes, the journals, the rings, the life he'd hidden and entrusted to me. But I also couldn't stay here. Not with my father on the other side of the door, not with the mayor backing him, not with my heart doing somersaults every time Grady looked at me. I felt cornered. I couldn't call the police. Dad was the chief of police. There was no one I could call. Pinned between two dangers, the men outside, demanding what wasn't theirs, and the man inside, who made me feel things I was not ready to feel. For a moment, everything inside me cracked. "I don't know what to do," I whispered. Grady finally touched my shoulder, warm, steady, grounding. "You don't have to decide right now," he said softly, "but you're not facing this alone." The pounding stopped. Silence, a muffled call on my dad's radio. He replied, "Can't you get someone else?" I didn't hear the response, but Dad's voice came again, clipped and irritated. "Acknowledged. Be there in 5. Then, lower, cold enough to shiver through the door. "We'll be back, and you will give us those keys." Their footsteps faded down the hall. I sank onto the couch, towel still clinging to me, water dripping onto the cushions. For the first time since arriving in this town, I felt truly, completely lost. Chapter 12. Grady and I drove back to Uncle Theodore's old house, keys to the garage and the car in my pocket. A police cruiser sat parked in front of the garage door, angled just enough to block anything from leaving. A policeman lounged in the driver's seat. Eating a burger like this was the most normal thing in the world. "Howdy," Grady called out. "What brings you out here?" The officer looked straight at me. "Evening, Grady. Sheriff assigned me to keep your boyfriend from stealing the car." "It's my car," I said, pulling the papers from the folder. "I inherited it, not my dad or anybody else. Me." The officer took the papers, glanced over them, scratched his head. "I'm only doing what I'm told." "Can we at least go inside and look at it?" Grady asked. The officer shrugged and jerked a thumb toward the side door. "Free country, as long as you don't drive off with it." We unlocked the side door, flipped on the lights, and pulled the tarp back. "VIN numbers here," Grady said, lifting the hood. I snapped the picture and sent it to my friend. Outside, we heard the faint voice of the officer talking into his radio, low, clipped, unmistakably reporting that I was here. Grady's jaw tightened. "We don't have much time." I swallowed hard. I know. The garage felt different now, like a place we were trespassing in, even though it was mine. The air smelled of dust, old oil, and the faint sweetness of the polish Uncle used. It should have been comforting. Instead, it felt like a goodbye. Grady lowered the hood gently, almost reverently. "They're not going to let this go." "I know," I whispered. The officer's voice drifted in again, louder this time. "Yeah, Chief, they're inside." My stomach twisted. Grady stepped closer, lowering his voice. "We need to decide what you want to do, right now." I looked at the car, the gleaming white paint, the blue stripes, the history humming beneath the hood. I looked at the boxes stacked neatly in the corner. I looked at the door where shadows moved behind the frosted glass. And for the first time, I felt the weight of everything pressing down at once. My father's authority, the mayor's influence, the town's expectations, the truth about my uncle, the rings, the journals, the love story buried for decades. And Grady, always Grady, standing too close, steady and warm, the one person who'd made me feel safe and unsteady at the same time. "I don't know what to do," I said, voice cracking. Grady's hand brushed mine. Not a grab, not a hold, just a touch, a promise, a question, a warning. "We'll figure it out," he said, "but not if they corner you here." Outside, the cruiser door slammed. Boot steps approached. Grady's eyes met mine. "Marcus, we need to move." Chapter 13. "Grab a box," I said. Grady did, lifting one without hesitation. When the officer opened the door, I nodded toward the stack. "Mind giving us a hand? Can you grab the middle one?" He blinked, surprised, but went over and picked it up. He followed us to Grady's car, burger still in his other hand. "Your dad wants me to keep you here until he can get here," he said. "Why?" Grady asked. "We're moving boxes. Is that against the law?" "Well, no," the officer admitted. Grady opened his trunk and we slid the boxes in. "Is there a legal reason to detain us?" I asked, as we headed back toward the garage. "No," he said, scratching his cheek. "He just said don't let you leave." We grabbed the last two boxes and returned to the car. "If we leave," Grady said, "you planning to handcuff us and use brute force to make us stay?" The officer shifted his weight. "I can't do that." "Didn't think so," Grady said. We got in the car. The officer didn't move to stop us. Didn't reach for his radio. Didn't even finish his burger. We drove off. Chapter 14. "My friend in Vegas texted," I said, and then read the text. VIN confirms car's a Shelby Mustang. In its condition, probably worth closer to $200K. Spoke with a guy who works at the Carroll Shelby Museum, and he recommended affordable shipping options. Says you can store it with them while things are figured out. Might even make an offer once they see the car. It was 3 days after the will reading. The truck would arrive in an hour to load the Shelby Mustang and carry it to Vegas. Lindsay Winters, the woman from the Historical Society, was inside the house with 2 interns cataloging all the belongings. My parents had left messages and texts, all variations of, "We are contesting the will," and "That car belongs with family." Even, "I think it would be a nice gesture for you to give it to Mayor Tidwell." Everything translated as, "We want the money and could care less about the car." The officer wasn't parked in front of the garage today. Either he hadn't arrived or had better things to do. Grady and I had pushed the car out front, into the sunshine, and let it proudly bask in the light. The light shimmered in glorious waves along its smooth, white finish and polished chrome. "Up for a ride?" I announced, climbing behind the wheel. It had been years since I had driven this old baby, since I had handled a clutch, but my body hadn't forgotten. Grady climbed in beside me, grinning. The engine turned over. First try. Windows down, ancient radio blaring, arms waving, whooping for joy, we cruised down Main Street, past City Hall, past the Greasy Spoon. Clarice screamed and waved. We stopped long enough to take a selfie with her in front of the diner. Then she insisted on taking one of us standing beside the car. The irony wasn't lost on me. 2 gay men in hiding once posed with this Mustang in front of the Greasy Spoon. Decades later, 2 more gay men stood in the same spot, smiling for a picture neither of us had to hide. For a heartbeat, it felt like the past and present lined up, like the photograph we'd just taken was finishing a story my uncle never got to tell. All too soon, we had to head back to Uncle Theodore's place. The truck was already there, loading ramps down, 2 men leaning in the shade as if they'd been waiting for this moment. 2 police cruisers waited too, and beside them stood my father, Chief of Police Bolton Carter, and his boss, Mayor Tidwell. "Damn," Grady muttered. Chapter 15. My dad approached before I even climbed out of the car. "Son, Marcus, I can't let you take that car. The family's filed a motion to contest the will with the Houston County Probate Court over in Dothan. We believe Theodore's property, including the car, should be ours." "The will says different," I said. "The will is wrong," Mayor Tidwell snapped, stepping forward, fists clenched. "Our town owns that car and that property." I looked at Dad. What does he mean? Dad's gaze dropped. "I figured we'd inherit both, the car and the property, so I sold them to the mayor. Your mom and I needed the money." I stared at him. "But you didn't inherit either." "Don't you see?" Dad pleaded. "I've already spent the money. The mayor paid for that car." Grady barked a laugh. "That's stupid." Dad's jaw tightened. "Just hand it over, Marcus. Don't make this harder." "And the house?" Grady asked. "We don't own that. Maybe the garage if we stretch the definition a little, but I don't think Marcus wants it." "Lindsay won't budge," Dad said. "So the courts will decide, and once they hear our side, they'll see it our way." "Who ever heard of this Evelyn person anyway?" the mayor added. "It's not like she's famous." My dad stared at me, the same stare that intimidated drunks, and me when I was 15. "You will do as I say. I am head of this family." Grady's mouth dropped open. I snorted. "Enough." I looked at the mayor. Sure, I agreed, but there are conditions. Dad's shoulders sagged. Name them. I smiled. First, I want 4 public apologies for kicking me out of town. 1 from you, Dad, 1 from Mom, 1 from Mayor Tidwell, and 1 from his son, Connor Tidwell. That's unreasonable, the mayor snapped. What's the second? Dad asked. The car is worth $200,000. Pay me that, give me the apologies, and it's yours. Dad looked at the car, then at me. We don't have the money, and a public apology like that would make me look bad and might ruin my career. It would ruin mine, Mayor Tidwell replied. His voice sharpened. And I'm not paying for something I already bought. You promised me, Bolton. I'm not going down for this. You are. He pointed at Dad. This is fraud by deception. As mayor, I'm relieving you of duty effective immediately. Turn in your badge. Chapter 16. Grady and I sat in the greasy spoon, eating biscuits covered in sausage gravy with a side of eggs and cheesy grits. Clarice refilled our cups. Heard anything about your dad? Mom says the DA might change it to a civil case so Dad would be required to pay it back. You and your folks talking again? Grady asked. We'll see how long it lasts. The door opened. A man our age with thinning blonde hair entered. He looked around, saw me, and hesitated. Connor? I asked. He nodded and took a seat at our table. Hi. Grady sipped his mug, raising an eyebrow. I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Long time. How have you been? He nodded. Look, I came to say I'm sorry for 15 years ago. It scared me. I freaked out. Dad freaked out. Before I knew it, you were run out of town. I remember, I said, keeping my tone neutral. Grady placed a hand on mine. Connor noticed and glanced away. I've done a lot of thinking. I'm sorry. Sorry for how I acted. Sorry for what happened. Sorry for the mess it turned into. We didn't speak for a minute. His eyes teared up. His voice choked. I think you were the lucky one, getting out of Mercy, able to live your own life, not get stuck. You don't know how bad it's been here. His hands, bone white now, gripped each other. His apology was more than I ever hoped for. His dad would never apologize. My parents wouldn't. But Connor's, I could accept. I laid my hand on his and whispered, I understand. We talked until the lunch crowd started drifting in. Eventually, Connor stood, thanked us, and left. Then it was just Grady and me. Will you ever come back to Mercy? Grady asked. I smiled and kissed him. Now I have a reason to. Let me know if you're interested in a sequel with these characters. I'm Gio. Thank you for listening and thank you for staying to the end. I appreciate it. See you next time. I love you all. Peace, my friends.